Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here at Zimperium. As we're about to take you through the year of mobile, the risk and threats coming in 2022. Let's go over a couple hygiene things for the whole webinar. Chat is disabled, but if you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A box. Throughout the whole presentation, you've got myself and Nico here to answer the questions. Now, if we don't know the answer, don't worry. We'll try to follow up with you afterwards. We'll get your information and follow up with you afterwards. The recording, this is being a live recorded webinar. If you have to, for some reason, drop off or your connection dies, don't worry. You're going to get the recording sent out to you as well following this time. And as I said, everyone's going to be muted throughout this whole thing. So if you do have questions, do throw them into the Q&A box and we'll get to it. So let's, I think it's ready to get started. My name is Richard Malik. I'm the Director of Product Strategy. Nico, say hello to the wonderful people.
Hey everyone, my name is Nico Charaviglio. I'm the Vice President of Security Research. I'm leading all Zimperium research initiatives. So I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, in other words, Nico gets to deal with the scary stuff. I get to deal with the fun stuff. But we get to work together and do things like this together. So we are here to talk about the year of mobile, the risk and threats coming in 2022. But it would be it's best for us to start a little bit in the beginning and talk about, what did 2021 look like for us? And I want to start with this quote. This quote comes from Maddie Stone and Clement Lacine from Google Threats Analysis Group, or Google Project Zero for those of us know. For almost the last 2 years, they've been really focused on the mobile landscape, and they came out with this quote after a zero-day vulnerability was discovered in Android. And Maddie Stone and Clement said, the growth of mobile platforms has resulted in an increase in the number of products that actors want capabilities for. Think about that. We all have mobile devices. We have these cell phones, these tablets, these smartwatches, all these mobile devices that are interconnected with our lives and interconnected with our work. And they're outside the scope of the traditional security landscape as we've all gone into remote distributed workforces or hybrid working, in the office and out of the office. But this quote makes sense. For the past few decades, enterprises have spent considerable time and resources investing in security solutions against traditional endpoints and the infrastructure that protects them, the infrastructure of our offices. The focus has been on the devices their employees and customers use to connect to the services and workflows. But as we are all living it in the past 3 years, the modern workflow has evolved and grown with new devices introduced every single day. Think about the number of devices that you use to do your job, to be effective. Many organizations, big and small, have accepted these tablets and phones into their systems with the spirit of productivity, but have often given little thought to how these devices impact their complete attack surface. Recent Verizon data breach report, or mobile security report, came out and said 48% of organizations has sacrificed security of their mobile endpoints and mobile devices in efforts to make sure that everyone can be productive. They don't want to get in the way. And this is all for good reason. Everyone focused on traditional endpoints because that's where the malicious actors focused their attention. But times have changed. In recent years, attackers have started to focus on secured mobile devices and applications due to the plethora of connections, personal and private data, and low risk to being caught. Think about it. Would you actually know if your phone has been hacked? Would you know if your application has been hacked? And the news recently, which we'll go into, has shown that it's not just small data leaks. Instead, enterprises are faced with a plethora of zero-day and zero-click vulnerabilities designed to target mobile devices and applications, stealing and spying on unsuspecting users. And with the average user unaware of the risks of the devices, many of these attacks are successful and far more successful than malicious actors are anticipating. So whether these are the apps or the endpoints themselves, the enterprise attack surface has grown. It's greater than ever, and mobile endpoints are part of that equation. So as we said, it's not just it's just not the news. It's saying this. Over here, you've got headlines from the past year, from the rise of man-in-the-middle attacks targeting endpoints to misconfigured applications leaking credentials. You've got the security problem on hand, literally in your hand. It's not just malware either that's threatening these mobile devices. It's a never-ending cadence of CVEs and patches on both iOS and Android. And it is no surprise that mobile attacks are going to continue to fill our security news weekly. Nico, this is kind of your area of expertise. Like, what stands out to you? Like, why are these vectors of attack, everything from the misconfigured applications to the zero-click vulnerabilities that Pegasus that were discovered through Pegasus, and even like Wi-Fi. Why is this such a big concern for us?
So I think this slide is actually great because it's summarizing everything or most of the things that we've seen last year. So for example, Wi-Fi. Why is Wi-Fi still a vector? Because Wi-Fi protocols are still the same since forever, basically. And also, even when you're hardening the OS, the communication is still there, right? So if you have control of the Wi-Fi network, if you are able to, for example, perform a man-in-the-middle attack and drop the encryption of that connection, then you can easily get control of all the data that the user is transmitting. So for example, you can steal credentials. The other really nice point here is, for example, the Brewdog hack. So we're talking about here risk. So this is not a malicious actor. This is just some developer developing an application without security in mind. So this is one of the main risks at the moment. Also, we have here malware, Flytrap. We've discovered several novel malwares and novel techniques. So that's still really relevant, and malware are constantly evolving. And of course, we have state actors like Pegasus users. Just a few days ago, it was released that in Israel, the police was using Pegasus against their citizens. So I think we have most of the landscape here. What we're missing is CVEs and basically all the vulnerabilities that researchers are finding every day.
Yeah, and you hit on a really good point, the CVEs that are coming in. So let's jump to that slide. This isn't, not an exciting chart if you don't know really the story behind it, but let's talk about this jump. If an organization is not taking into account the mobile vector of attack and exploitable attack surface that mobiles introduce into their environment, they're fundamentally ignoring such a large attack surface for their devices, for their data, for their employees, for their systems, for their company. While 2016 was the first year that any zero-day exploited vulnerability was discovered in the wild, and it was attributed to, you're going to hear the word a lot, to the first outing of Pegasus spyware campaign. It's relatively been quiet up until 2019. Though mobile endpoint was more of a novelty and convenience, and then relied on endpoint for the everyday. Think about it. Up until COVID and right before COVID, the mobile device was just, hey, it's nice that you have a phone. We're going to call you or text you if you need to. Now it's part of our every single day workflows. You have two-factor authentication, access to your email, Slack, Discord, whatever it is. And as years have gone on, these devices, these phones and tablets are crucial elements to our work and personal lives. And the big thing is that the lines have blurred between the two. Bring your own device policies are in place across organizations big and small. This increased reliance is not just noticed by manufacturers who release the latest and greatest in devices every single month. Malicious actors have long recognized these endpoints as critical and crucial vectors of attack. It's not just the data that lives on the devices that the attackers are after. Cloud-based services are definitely changing the vectors. While cloud security and cloud connectivity adds a layer of security, if the device that's connected into that data is not protected or largely unprotected, it does nothing to minimize the risk to the enterprise and the data. Mobile endpoints are routinely targeted with critical information like passwords, two-factor authentication, data leaks inside apps, and more. And they're routinely, as we've seen in the news, routinely targeted for spyware and espionage. Now let's put this into perspective. This is I will share out the link inside the Q&A. And it will also be in the follow-up email that links to this report. So it is not just us saying this. This is coming from Google that tracks all the exploited zero-day in the wild vulnerabilities across multiple ecosystems. So in 2019, there were a total of 21 exploited zero-day vulnerabilities in the wild. Mobile accounted for 4 of them, or 19%. In 2020, there were 26 total, Windows, Microsoft, or Apple, all those. 3 specific to mobile, 11%. Last year, you can see this giant bar over here on the right side. 2021, we saw 58 exploited zero-day vulnerabilities in the wild. 18 of them directly targeted mobile. That's a massive jump. And that's 31% of those 58. And it's safe to say that COVID, BYOD, distributed workforce, has had a massive impact on the attack surfaces of enterprises around the world. Now, security researchers, the people that Nico's going up against every single day, they are able to scan and see all this data coming in because we are outside the scope of our protected environments, outside the scope of our offices, largely connected to unsecured or poorly secured networks, as we travel, as we walk, or even as we sit at home. Mobile endpoints are getting equal, if not more, attention as time passes, and we're expecting this number to continue to drop. Now, I want to hit on one thing. I know some of you are thinking, well, it's just going to be one operating system or the other. I own this device. It's named after a fruit. Of course, it's more secure. Actually, the split between Android and iOS exploited vulnerabilities has almost been equal, with iOS increasingly targeted and exploited over the years. iOS actually accounts for more zero-day exploited vulnerabilities than Android in historical data. Now, Nico, is there anything you want to add into this one as we kind of dive into the scary side?
Yes. So first of all, that we did have a massive jump in 2021 because people was working remotely, so it made sense to attack. So the weakest link now is the mobile device, but at the same time, what happened in the past is that we were kind of blind. It's very difficult to track what it's exploited in the wild. So these numbers are just like the lower limit of the real landscape. And commenting on what you were saying about the iOS being more secure, there is a company that is called Serodium that they are basically buying 0 days, not to disclose them, but just to use them for an offensive security point of view. And last year, they were not buying anymore any remote code execution on iOS because they had too many that were not discovered yet. So no, iOS is not more secure than Android, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. So let's, we're talking about the devices right now, but let's get into the actual weeds of it. Talk us through why apps are something that we as users are not really thinking about and giving good enough attention to.
Yeah, so usually when we think about security, we're just thinking about malicious actors, but we are not thinking about risk. So as I said before, sometimes developers are creating applications without security in mind. So these are some of the things that they are doing without security in mind. So for example, today we rely a lot on cloud storage, right? So every application or most applications are using some sort of cloud like AWS or Google Cloud or Azure or whatever. And if that cloud is not properly configured, you can have the safest application, but if I can go and compromise that cloud, I can get all your data. And we've seen crazy stuff there. 4% of Apple applications, iOS applications, and 7% of Android apps are using this kind of cloud. So we can go and steal all the data. And sometimes it's like full databases, private data, a lot of stuff. If we talk about compliance, now we have, for example, GDPR. We have applications that should be compliant to European General Data Protection Regulation, or we have other compliance standards, and half of applications, both on Android and iOS, are not compliant. Encryption, everyone thinks that encryption is like the holy grail of security, but almost 20% of applications on iOS have not implemented encryption properly. They try to, but they are making some mistakes that basically let us access to the information regardless. Also, they are leaking information through requests. So it's very common to see applications that are making requests that have a username and a password there. So if you are intercepting the communication, as we said before, if you're in the network, you can see all the traffic, then you can access the credentials of that user. When we are talking about API key leak, so before you had the news about the Brewdog application, that was exactly the case. They had the credentials hard-coded in the app. So if you are not protecting your app, which is 48% of applications are not obfuscating or producing any sort of code integrity, it's trivial to an attacker to access those keys and leverage that. And why is this important for your enterprise? Because now if users are using some sort of enterprise data and that's going to some third-party cloud and you are able to compromise that, then an attacker is compromising enterprise data too.
Yeah. And Nico, you hit on some good points. It's not even just it's not even the use of the applications that we download, right? It's also the applications that we're developing. And so the mindset needs to be applied towards, if you're part of the development lifecycle of application for your customers, for internal, even if it's a sideloaded application just for your internal use, you need to have a security mindset applied. But if you're also introducing an application into your environment, hey, we're going to buy this service. They have a mobile application that's going to help our users be productive. Are you thinking about this? Are you wondering, hey, what's your configuration of your cloud storage? Are you within compliance, or are you just saying it? What's your encryption like? Are you obfuscating your API keys? Are you potentially revealing our user data? Because if you're relying on another service to handle your data, you're trusting them to handle it properly. Do you know where it's going? That's the old joke of, is your refrigerator running? Then we should catch it. It's like, do you know where your data is? You should probably go catch it. And that idea needs to be applied on both the endpoint security and the application security side, right?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's always think about this. You're introducing an application. You have 80 applications on average installed on every single mobile device, whether tablet or phone. Now, about 10%, a little bit more is going up as the years are going on. About 10% of those are enterprise specific. So those are 10 potential vectors of attack or vectors of data leakage or application risk that's increasing your attack surface, your enterprise's attack surface. And all it takes is one. All it takes is one credential leak. All it takes is one person to be risky with their data to potentially put your whole enterprise at risk, because that's part of the application or the attack chain that mobile hackers or cyber criminals are using against enterprises these days. So we've talked about what has come. Let's talk about what's coming. Coming in 2022, we've got some pretty standard predictions coming off what Nico just talked about. We're going to see bigger enterprise app leaks. The more apps we use, the more risk that we're introducing. But with that, DevOps teams are not approaching the development of these applications with security mindsets. They're approaching it like, how easy can we give? What kind of ease of experience can we give to our users? What kind of simplicity to the solution can we deliver, or how fast can we deliver it? So they're using open source code from here, they're using a common technique from there, but they're not really thinking about like, how does this all mix? Is this opening up a key to that? They're not approaching that with that mindset. And we do believe that we're going to see more enterprise focused app leaks coming out in 2022. Coming off of that, QR codes as they increase vectors of attack. We're all used to QR codes. They made a resurgence. It's the second coming of the QR codes. They've now become socially accepted interactions with mobile. We're using it for payments. We're using it for getting on menus for our going out dining. We're using it for check-in at the airport. Whatever it is, a QR code has become a very, very common thing that we see in the wild, but it's also easily spoofed. Down in Australia, they've had 2 arrests and jailings of people who have put up fake QR codes and broken their local data laws with redirecting traffic against somebody's permission. And how easy would it be for us to go drop QR codes at a restaurant and say, oh no, that's the menu, and up would pop a menu, or hey, well, you need to download this application in order to access the menu. We're all going to accept it because we're in the mindset of that's what's convenient. State-sponsored mobile threats are going to start trickling down. Nico hit on it a little bit earlier, but Pegasus was used by the Israeli state against their own residents. One thing I want to hit on that is it's not just Pegasus, it's all threats. Once something is discovered, even though it may be novel at that point, you've got Pegasus, Phone Spy, Flubot, Flytrap, Grift Horse, all of these malwares that came out in 2021. Once the novel effect wears off, those pieces of malware don't disappear, and the ingredients that made them successful definitely don't disappear. They start getting used in other exploits. You start seeing it's like baking, right? The way I bake some bread is not how Nico bakes some bread, even though we're going to use the exact same ingredients. We're going to apply it in a different manner. And think back to traditional threats against the traditional endpoint. Let's go all the way back to WannaCry. You had Eternal Blue and Double Pulsar making WannaCry successful, one of the most successful ransomware campaigns in history, so successful that the attackers actually were not prepared for it. But the story that most people do not know is that WannaCry was actually the 3rd version, the one that got in the front page of Newsweek and USA Today. That was the 3rd version of WannaCry. The first 2 versions didn't have Eternal Blue and Double Pulsar, the key ingredients to its success, and only infected 100 some odd victims globally. And then, they got the ingredients from the state-sponsored, the NSA, and became successful. We're going to see that with these mobile attacks, these mobile threats. And this attack chain is going to get even busier. And it's even going to get even more critical for us to protect against. Spyware is going to continue to rise. We are seeing a massive increase in spyware, both commercially available and privately available and maliciously developed. It's not hard to find, and that's what makes it scary. You can find it on, GitHub. You can find it on a quick Google search, on Reddit, all across, just on basic forums that they're talking about it as if it's a commercially available product. We carry these tracking devices with us everywhere we go. They fit in our pocket, and we have services like, GPS and Bluetooth tracking turned on. The data is being shared and is accessible to any attacker that is able to get in. It's invaluable to them. And once they're in, they're able to get everything. The spyware that we're seeing, it's able to steal everything. It's like Pegasus, but commercially available. And then finally, we're going to see a lot more disruptive attacks. I talked about it in the state-sponsored mobile threats trickle down. As these exploits and vulnerabilities and bugs get, revealed and talked about, remember, just because it's talked about doesn't mean it goes away. Just because it disappears in the news doesn't mean it's not still viable. It just means that the novel effect has worn off. And so we're going to start seeing components of the malware or components of the bugs being used in other attacks, and it's going to get more disruptive. We'll see bugs being used against iOS and Android devices. That's going to stop them from being able to be reloaded, or being able to access your data, or maybe even locking out your screen or turning off buttons, because everything is now digitally connected. And multiple vulnerabilities are going to be used in an effective attack chain against these mobile devices. That's going to remove the ability for the user to circumvent it without going through certain steps. Ransomware, we're expecting to see ransomware this year, and big pieces of ransomware. Nico, anything else that we should be concerned about for 2023 that I didn't add here?
Yeah, so first of all, I really love the QR code attack surface, because you can do something completely silent. So you were mentioning before OS vulnerabilities. So if I have, for example, some sort of vulnerability for the browser, I can create an attack in which I'm exploiting the browser, and then I'm redirecting to the original QR code, so the user sees nothing. I know that the impact is very minimal geographically speaking, because you need to be accessing that QR code. So for example, a menu on a restaurant or something like that, but it's a really good attack surface. And the other thing that I think that we will see a lot is scamware. So applications that are not really malicious, but they are trying to exploit the user unawareness. So for example, like Grift Horse, that they were trying to subscribe users to premium SMS campaign or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Scamware, I think, is one of those things. It's like phishing. It's always going to be there as long as there's a vector of attack that someone's going to be able to steal our money. And let's, I actually want to hit on that real quick. I know it's not on the slides, and it's not something you and I prepped for, but let's talk about why scamware and phishing is like such a viable thing. One, phishing is viable against mobile devices because we're used to clicking everything, just as users are going to click accept and links and everything like that on their desktops. On the mobile device, it's even more likely because they can't see header information. They can't, preview a link or, see if that's a viable link. They're going to click things. And now we're starting to see phishing messaging coming through in-app messaging. It is massive in terms of what we're seeing. It's not just via SMS. It's not just via email. It's through any communications tool. And think about how many communication tools we have. In-app messaging. Hey, click here in order to get premium services. And this goes to Nico's point of scamware. We're seeing the rise of scamware because a lot of regions around the world do not have consumer protections in place that prevent people from, automatically subscribing to SMS subscription services, paying $15 a month. We can trick users into signing up for it because, again, it goes back to this idea that we're used to this process. Oh, if I want the best version of this app, I have to pay for the premium service of it. But are you actually getting it? Now, for those of you that are going, that's a consumer problem. Nico, you said something last year that has stuck with me far more than anything else I've read and heard. With the advent of BYOD, there is no such thing as a consumer-only threat. in the day and age of BYOD, the moment that we have Scamware installed on a device that's connected in, you have a vector of attack that's now open. You have a user that has compromised their device in one way or another. It can get down to the financial costs. If your organization is paying that phone bill, hey, that's money out of your revenue. That's money that you're having to pay in order to, pay this person's subscription fee. Or if you have a corporate device that you're selling out or providing out to your employees, and they sign up for Scamware, all of a sudden you're paying more and your bill is going up, and you're not going to detect it, especially if you have 100 devices in there. $15, $20 a month, that's pennies, but it adds up over time. And so I think that's a great point there, Nico. And y'all, we would be amiss to not talk about how it's happening now. This is an interesting hack. Tesla hack signals the importance of smart car security. Now, this sounds like the phone or the car itself was hacked, but it actually wasn't. It was a third-party application that was able to connect into Tesla services on the car, and as teenager hacker was able to control things. Now, it wasn't critical systems from what we read and what was reported. It was HVAC controls. It was sound. It was comfort controls that were able to be messed with by this hacker, and multiple cars were hacked. But this goes to show, as we've been talking about, application security. The APIs were out there in the open, so somebody could build an open source application to connect to the Tesla. But with that, available, they're also saying, hey, here's the keys to this vehicle's kingdom. And you're able to go in there. And if one service is connected to another, you can just keep jumping and jumping until you get to where you want. So it's happening. And granted, they did roll out a patch, but the rise of the smart car. If you look on the inside of your door of your brand new purchased vehicle, most of them have an IMEI number because they have to be registered with a telco. They're broadcasting a signal. They're always connected. They're always tracked. So one way or another. So how do we stay ahead of the threats of 2022? Investing in zero trust architecture. Never trust, always verify, must include mobile. Now, zero trust architecture is not something that you buy and say, okay, we've implemented. This is an always moving target. You're always working towards zero trust. But mobile device data is crucial to identity verification. It should be one of the main components in your identity verification of that employee. Advanced anti-phishing protection. As Nico talked about with the QR codes, phishing is more than text and emails. QR codes and in-app messages need to be analyzed as well. Phishing can come from QRs. Phishing can come through in-app messages or from a malicious website that's delivered in through an ad. It is all kind of phishing trying to get in there. And the stats are kind of scary. 1 out of 3 employees are likely to click it, and 1 out of 8 employees of that are likely to submit their private information. Remember, all it takes is one piece of data to be revealed. We need to start treating mobile as an endpoint. That is ultimately where we need to be. This is an endpoint. It's a supercomputer in your pocket. It's more powerful than all the computers that took us to the moon combined. And the amount of data and access each device has is increasing every single day. Mobile endpoints remain the least protected devices, though, inside your corporate network. Pen test your enterprise apps. This is what Nico was hitting on with the configurations and the misconfigurations and APIs hard-coded and all that with the leaky buckets. Each new app introduces data leak and other risks into your environment. Check and verify how your enterprise data is being used. Be confident in that. And then finally, it's time to move beyond mobile device management and mobile access management, MDM and MAM. Management is not mobile threat defense. Management is not security. There's nothing you can tell me is going to change my mind on that one. Mobile endpoints need the same style of security, the same approach to security as traditional endpoints. You're watching me on your laptop right now. It's got probably a next generation AV or EDR installed on it with cloud-based security. What are you doing to protect the phones as well? Anything on that one? Any other tips there, Nico?
Yes. So if you're developing applications, code integrity and obfuscation is a must. So not only pen test. So that's a good one. And also, if you want to protect yourself, if you're in a network, use a VPN. That's a good one. And last, training. Train yourself to identify stuff. So usually the human is the weakest link. So if you train users, you'll be better.
That's why phishing is still a viable form of attack. So who are we real quick? You know, we would be amiss to not talk about who we are. So if you don't know who we are Imperium. We are the mobile threat defense leaders in terms of application and endpoint security. We provide mobile threat defense through to Android, iOS devices, and all could be controlled from one cloud-based console, or even if you need it on device, we can, or on premise, we can work with you on that one. This is the most advanced AI-powered threat defense, mobile threat defense on the market. And it is all powered by the advanced mobile security platform. You know, everything from our application security over to our endpoint security is all powered through one single platform with the same mindset of we are going to prevent the threats before they even exist. We're going to know about what they mean and what these threats can do before even the attackers are, because we understand what a threat looks like. Artificial intelligence and machine learning has allowed us to get to that point of saying, this is risky code. Because as I said before, it's just like baking. It's how we bake that changes. But the ingredients are mainly the same. The vectors are mainly the same. And it takes artificial intelligence and machine learning to understand and stay ahead of it. So if you have any questions about that, you'll get an email following this. If you'd like to reach out and connect with one of our sales reps, get a demo of anything, we'd be happy to talk to you, either application security or endpoint security, or both. You know, even if you need help with penetration testing. So ultimately, Imperium here is Imperium. We secure mobile data, mobile employees, mobile phones, all of it. That's what we're here to do. We're here to keep you and your employees and your devices secure as they travel the world. Nico, any final words to the people?
No, it was great. Thanks for staying up to the end, and it was great.
Everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day. Be safe out there.